Hey, I'm Kyle. Welcome to this episode of the Newfoundland Hobbyist. The Newfoundland Hobbyist is sponsored in part by Robinson's General Store in Middle Arm, Noble's Timber Mart with locations in Springdale and Bayvert, Knife and Axe found at youngandmackenzie.ca, Outdoor Pros located in Mount Pearl, Newfoundland. So today we're going to be doing a woodworking project. I haven't done a woodworking project in quite some time, but woodworking is one of my favorite hobbies. And what I love so much about it is something I've talked about before, is that when I woodwork, I only use hand tools. A lot of my other hobbies and business ventures, especially knife making, requires a lot of power tools, a lot of personal protective equipment, headgear, face mask, and the works, and it's just not comfortable. It's loud, it's noisy, a lot of dust and grit going around. But woodworking, you don't need any of that because I only use hand tools, and it's just so relaxing. You can sit with a tea if you want, a little bit of music playing, and just work away. It's so peaceful and relaxing. I'm really excited to get to this project. Now I have a few drawings here of something. I want to build a tool tote. Now although they're a little bit taken up here now, I've built a couple tool totes before. I have this massive one here. You can see how long this is. I built this one last year, and this is one I would use if I was taking, say, a bunch of tools, if I was going to do some work somewhere else. And then I built this little one. This was I built this one several years ago in a little tiny shop when I lived in a little apartment. It was just a room in the house, and that was the extent of my workshop at that time. But I built this little thing with very minimal tools, and it ended up being, it's kind of too small really. The shape doesn't lend itself for many tools, so I took it for my brace and all my bits. That's what I keep that in now. The whole bottom thing is loaded with bits. But we're going to build something in the middle of this today. So here's the extent of my drawings at this point. You see, it's going to be pretty much square, like I said. I'm not exactly sure in dimensions. The thing is, usually when I'm woodworking, I'm not working with an abundance of materials like with most of my projects. So I have to pick around here, see what wood material I have. I have some pine. I have a little bit of cherry that I use for knife scales. That's expensive, but I want to include it a little bit here. So I'm thinking these two sides are done with cherry. I'm thinking about doing an inlay somewhere just for decorative purposes and to test my skills. Yeah, so square base, two ends. I'm thinking these ends will be set in somewhere. Not a through tenon, I don't think, but they'll be let in. And then as for the base, I'm not sure if I want to set it up into the bottom or have it up and into the sides. I'm not exactly sure yet. Let's look around at our materials first and see what we're able to do. So I have some pine here, a couple end cuts that I picked up at a local hardware store. I have this nice piece that's left over from actually the project we did last season where I built the keepsake box for my daughter. That's left over from there. We are cutting 15 inches overall length, and the width is 9 3/4. So let's mark at 15 inches here. Right here. Now we mark our lines with a knife instead of a pencil because a knife is so much more accurate. I'm going to cut on the waist side of our line. There we have it. Now you can see here that because we've put in that line, there's absolutely zero tear out because we had probably about a 1/16 deep knife cut. So it took all that stress away from the surface fibers, gave us a nice razor sharp edge. Now I always cut just a tad shy of my line. My fingernail's in the line there, about a 1/16 or so, and I'd rather plane down just so I have a little bit of wiggle room for my saw, just in case my cut gets out of hand and I'm not perfect. By planing down I can really control it, and I also get to plane down and get a much more perfect surface than our saw cut here. I've got a little bit of room, and especially since we're doing long grain here now, I can plane this off beautifully. My footprint, my beautiful footprint number 4 is my choice for this. There we have it, one full pass. Nice clean strip there. Now if you remember, we have a couple dados cut in this project, so that's the most type of joinery we're using. It's just a tongue and groove type joinery, so we need to cut a few dados. And what I'm going to use mainly to do that, at least on my bottom, is this beautiful record. This is a 778. It has our fence here for setting the lateral depth. It has a guide here for setting vertical depth. And very importantly, the plane has this cutter right here. Now this little cutter means everything to this plane. It allows you to cut across grain because it snips the grain. Notice it sticks down just below the iron. It snips the grain before the blade hits it, so you don't end up tearing everything to pieces, tearing out all your fiber. Now what I'll do is I'll just back score the work here first with my cutter. And notice it just made a perfect slit right along that material. So I'll sit right in against my fence. I'll do this a couple times. We want a nice surface stuck out there. And now we should be good to make our cut. I'll make our first cut delicately here. And there we've started. Now we should be able to just plane away. Now we need to keep our plane square, so our cut is nice and square. And just like that, we have a super crisp dado cut. Now I can cut a little faster than that, no worries, but that is just beautiful. Like I said, you have to be mindful of how upright your plane is. Of course, if you tip it either way, you're going to mess up that dado. But just look at that. Again, we're going to back draw, allow the cutter to score that material. I'll just do that a couple times lightly, just to let that cutter get as deep as it can go, and then we can start our cut. I'm thinking I want this tote to be pretty deep, so I handle up here with a low side, so you get lots of room to get in and out there. If I did 16 inches, do I have enough material for that? I can squeeze 16 in there, and I have plenty. So 16 it is. We'll cut out 2 sections. We've got a badly broken out corner here, but that's not too bad. I better check again. Yes, 16. I think 16 will be just nice. And let's keep in mind which side of our line is waste wood. Okay, so now we have the bottom and plain side. We have one end, and then we have the other end, which will go like that. So now we have to cut 2 notches in our 2 dados in our end pieces here. These will be cut in like you saw in the diagram earlier, and then we'll have a handle here. Now to be cutting this dado, we're going to be using our little Record 44. This is a beautiful plane. This is my first plane other than just a standard smoothing plane. So this is a little, it's called a plow plane. It's got a little fence. It's super basic, even more simple than the one we used earlier. And we have these little irons here, which are actually tungsten carbide. Really cool. But this one's dull, the one we need. This is the exact dimension of our little tongue here. So we need to hone this up. I'm going to grab the whetstones. Bit of quick work on the 1000. Polished edge like this will help it glide through the wood fibers that much easier. And one thing about our Record 44 is that it doesn't have an end grain cutter. So we need to make sure we score our line here nice and deep, or else we're going to tear out all this material down here and it's going to get ugly really quick. So I want a nice deep score line there now. Once we're down below the top surface, we're not likely to get tear out anymore, but I'm not going to chance it. So get this one, we're going to cut a nice deep line. Okay, let's try to get this right without any tear out. Our fence is set up. We want to start on one end and slowly graduate backward. No tear out so far. Let's just make sure we keep our plane nice and upright, nice and square to the board. So here's what we just cut. Beautiful groove there for our bottom to sit into. The Newfoundland Hobbyist is sponsored in part by Robinson's General Store in Middle Arm, Noble's Timber Mart with locations in Springdale and Bayvert, Knife and Axe found at youngandmackenzie.ca, Outdoor Pros located in Mount Pearl, Newfoundland. Okay, so you see what we have. We have our notch and our ledge. Now what I want is to do some of this beautiful cherry right over the outside, overlapping this edge out here. And then I'll need to cut a stop dado in the cherry to just cut over this. Then we'll have some pegs going up the side here. That's what I have in my mind. That'll give us ultimate strength, because then everything is just, it just can't move in any direction. So we have our stop dado marked out right here. Here's where it ends, here's where it ends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and chisel that a straight down edge there so we don't forget. Okay, so we have our rounds cut here, our end pieces, and they are almost identical. It's funny, I made them, marked them, drew them out completely independent, but you overlay them over each other here now on the bench and they're almost identical. So everything seems to be working good. I'm wondering what to do for a handle here, and I think what I'm going to do is make a handle out of this strip of oak I have here. So if we have our two ends here separated like this, imagine something like this, okay, and then our side pieces. I want to do square out through the ends, so you'll see the oak coming through like this. I have to chisel that out. But on the inside, let's do another way here. So it's going to come through, but we have enough material. I think we're able to do this. I recently watched a video by a world-class woodworker named Paul Sellers, and the video, if you want to search it up, is called Geometric Inlaying, I believe it's called. If you search that on YouTube, you'll find it, but there's something he does that's just so amazing. I'm going to try to incorporate that on this box. It might be a mistake. We'll see how it turns out, but I have this gorgeous piece, just a small piece of black walnut here, which was given to me by Ray Bartlett. Thanks very much, buddy. And I'm sorry for what I'm about to do if I spoil it. If it turns out, I'm sure you'll be excited as well. But what I'm going to try to do is run my plow plane, run a groove down the middle, and I'll cut off the sides. You'll see how we go about it, but hope this works. I'd say that turned out pretty fantastic. That looks so cool. Now after all the measuring, drawing, cutting, scraping, sawing, and the works, we have something special here, but it's time for it to really come to life, and that is to soak this down with boiled linseed oil. This is my preferred finish for my woodworking projects. Here we are. Once that oil goes on, oh yeah, it just brings just such a richness into the wood that's not there before when the wood's all dry and milled down. It just brings a lovely richness into the wood, and once it dries up, it gives it a silky finish. And there we have it, with just a few scrap in cuts of board, very little money's worth of board, and just a few hand tools. We have something here that I could use potentially for decades to come. The rest of my life, with the way those joints are built, if I take care of it, keep the wood oiled and hydrated, this thing will last almost forever. Remember, we didn't use any electricity to build this, only a few hand tools. If you had to do the same types of cuts and things that I did with a few hand saws and things, with power tools, you'd have thousands of dollars of tools put to use, where we had a few saws, a few planes, even the stuff I did where I used my few specialty planes, a knife and a chisel would have done just fine. You would have got there. It would have took a little bit longer. You would have got there just the same. I really hope you learned something, but if not, I hope at least you're entertained. Thank you so much to my sponsors for making the show possible. I really appreciate your support. I'd also like to thank you, the viewers. You're the reason we're putting off this show in the first place. I encourage you guys to get at your hobbies, put all your effort into each one, learn something new with each project, and you won't regret it. Thanks for watching. Make sure you tune in next week to Newfoundland Hobbyists.